Hey y'all, I'm Tammy, and the cameraman is Chris, my husband, and this is Collard Valley Cooks, where we cook like our mamas did. Today, I made a special cake just for you. It's a southern praline cake, and let me tell you, it is going to be amazing. So let's get started. But we're going to start with a cup of butter, and you're just going to put it in your mixer at room temperature. And you're going to beat it until it's nice and fluffy. You really need to beat it until it turns a light color, almost white looking. And beating it about 2 minutes is a good time. So we're going to beat this for 2 minutes on a medium speed. We're going to add 2 cups of sugar. One. And 2. And I'm going to add an egg one at a time. These need to be room temperature. We're going to use 4 eggs. We're going to put in 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And then I'm going to put in a teaspoon of butter extract. Instead of sifting my flour and my baking powder and salt together, I'm just going to add the baking powder and the salt to the mixer and then add my flour, okay? Because white lily flour I'm using today is all purpose and it's pre-sifted, so there's really no need for me to sift it, all right? Now, if you've got a cake flour and you want to sift your flour, then go ahead, or if it seems lumpy, then you should. So I'm going to use 3 teaspoons of baking powder and a teaspoon of salt. And my butter was salted, okay? So now what we're going to do is mix this up really good. Then we're going to start adding our flour a cup at a time. There's 3 cups of flour, and then we'll add the 1.25 cups of milk in as well together, kind of alternating it. Now, once you add the rest of the flour, you're going to beat it for 2 minutes, not over, and then we're going to get it in the pans. So I got the idea for this recipe off the Dixie Crystals sugar bag. It's on the back. It's called the Southern Praline Cake. However, I did change it up a good bit. And so I'm not using the recipe exactly. So if you want to make the cake like I did, you won't be able to go by the recipe on the bag or the website. You'll have to use my recipe. And I changed it up because they have soda in it. Normally, I don't use baking soda when I bake things unless I'm using buttermilk. This cake did not have buttermilk. I added more baking powder and more sugar, okay? So there was reasons, and more salt, and there was reasons I did that. So just let you know. It just sounded so good, and I wanted to make it. Now you can measure these out so that they're identical thicknesses, but I usually just eyeball it. So it's a lot of cake batter, which is really good. So it's going to make a nice tall cake. Now I'm using 8-inch pans, and they're sprayed, and they have a piece of parchment in the bottom of them. They tell you to use 9-inch pans, but I personally love 8-inch pans because it makes the cake look really tall. It's a pretty cake batter. It looks a lot like my white cake batter. It's in the Volume 1 cookbook. Looks delish. Now we're going to slide it into the oven and cook it at 350 degrees. All right, we'll see y'all in a little bit when they come out of the oven. We're going to make a delicious pecan frosting. All right, these are ready and they smell really good. Ooh, that one's not. That one's not quite ready. The one on the top is the one that's ready, I think. It's ready. Looks good. Bounces back when you touch it. Those are a little thicker, so it's going to take them a good 5 more minutes or so. And then we'll get them out. All right, these two are ready. We're going to get them out. And now this one's been out of the oven long enough I could flip it upside down. So I'm just going to flip it and then sit it back on my cooling rack. All right, y'all. We are going to make a delicious praline type icing. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm toasting my pecans and we're going to brown the butter. What gives pralines their delicious flavor is browning the butter. All right. So I'm going to take 2 sticks of butter. And put it in this skillet. And let it start melting. And we're actually going to cook it until it gets brown. Now you're not going to want to rush it and burn it or anything. You want it to have just a really brown butter flavor. So you're just going to cook your butter over a medium heat until it begins to brown. And I'll show you about how brown you're going to want it before you make your icing. You really need to do this ahead of time so that it can cool down. You don't want to add it to the powdered sugar when it's really hot. All right, it's finally getting a little bit brown. But I wanted a nice brown color. So I'm going to keep cooking it a little bit longer. See how it's turning? It's going to have a really good flavor. And you don't want it to get too brown. Just enough to give it a really good toasty, buttery flavor. Almost there, y'all. I think that's good. We're going to turn it off. And we're going to let it cool. And then once it cools down some, we're going to make some icing with it. All right, we're going to start making our icing. So we're going to take our browned butter and we're going to pour it in the mixer. And the mixer will help cool it down some. Smells good. Smells like pralines or toffee. We're going to start adding icing, sugar, which is powdered sugar. Now I'll probably use about 5 cups of powdered sugar at least. So we're just going to start adding it in here, and then if we need to add some extra cream, we will. Of this half and half. Now I'm going to taste it. I need to add a dash of, well, the butter was salted butter. That is so good. Oh, it is so good.
So that ended up being a half.
So we wound up adding about a half a cup of cream. You want to just add it until it gets a spreadable consistency. Because we brown the butter, it does make it thicker than if we just used butter. And I'm going to tell you, it is absolutely delicious. So I am going to take the beaters out of here and we're going to ice our cake. Now, I didn't make a ton of icing because we're going to put some caramel on the top and some pecans. It's going to be a very, very delicious cake. It tastes just like a praline or toffee. So I am going to go ahead and ice the layers. And I'm not going to put a lot of icing because we're going to put caramel on the top and it's going to be a really sweet cake. I used 8-inch layers. Now you can use 9 and it won't be quite as tall. Just try to get them as straight up as you can. And it don't have to be perfect. Now you're going to want to pretty much put all the rest of it on the top. And we're going to put caramel on the top, so it don't have to be real thick on the top. I could have probably even got this a little bit thinner, and it worked fine. That fresh layer in the middle is really wanting to give me a little bit of trouble. Now it's wanting to slide on me. I think this icing is getting a little thicker as it cools down. So I'm going to wet my spatula a little bit just to get it to spread easier. You can always wet your spatula if the icing seems to be a little thick. And now I got to get it around the bottom. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to grab this. And we are going to put pecans around the bottom, so it doesn't have to have a lot of icing at the bottom. But we need a little. My cake showed up. That's all right. We're going to cover it up with caramel. Lord, I think I could have used a tiny bit more icing.
You got a little down here.
Do I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need it.
So,
Oh, yeah. Perfect. All right. We got it. Now I'm going to smooth off the sides with my hot water and the top. And it doesn't matter that my cake came through because we're going to cover that up with caramel in just a minute. And that's all there is to it. Go around it one more time. And if you want to use a comb on it, you can. See if I've got one. Okay. Now make sure you get the edges real smooth so that when you put your caramel on, it'll flow down the edges good. You don't want a curb on it. If you have a curb, then it'll stop the caramel from flowing. All right. Now we're going to heat up our caramel. But while it's still wet on the bottom, you don't want to wait till it dries up. We're going to put some pecans around it. And you can toast your pecans or not. It's totally up to you. All right. There's our beautiful cake. Now we're going to take some caramel, and a friend of mine sent me some delicious Sanders caramel. And it says to take it out of the jar, put it in the microwave for about 10 seconds. Now I'm going to make sure it's a good spreadable consistency before I put it on top of the cake. And it's delicious. Me and Chris have already tasted it. Now I'm going to put this in the microwave for 10 seconds. 10 seconds. That was 10 seconds. And everybody's microwave's a little bit different. No, I think that's good. You don't want to get it so runny that it falls off the cake. All right, here we go. Give me another spatula. I'm going to go around it once first, and then I'm going to let it start down the edge a little bit. I'm just going to smooth off the top a little bit. That's going to be good, good, good. All right, we're going to put a few pecans on the top. All right, there you have it. If I spin a little bit, it might run a little bit better. Looks good, don't it? There you have it, my praline cake. Well, that looks good, and it smells delicious. Now, y'all, this is going to be absolutely over the top delicious. I promise. It's a southern praline cake. All right, let's cut us a piece, y'all. Now it's fresh, so we'll just have to see how it cuts. And I warmed up my knife a little bit so that it would go through that caramel pretty easy. See, it's nice and tall. And I always put the thickest piece on the bottom because it always seems to get messed up. A big piece of cake. Oh, it's so good. I can guarantee you right now, this is going to be one of the best cakes I have ever made. It is absolutely divine. Absolutely. All right, let's get a bite, y'all. Make sure you get some caramel. I'm going to grab a pecan. I want everything in one bite for y'all. Those layers are nice and tall. That is absolutely amazing. If y'all make this cake, you'll be making it again. I can guarantee you that. It is delicious. And make sure that when you brown that butter, you get it nice and brown, because that's what makes it taste so good. And the cake is so moist, and it's just delicious. Woo! Now that's a winner. Y'all have fun icing it up and putting the caramel on it. Everybody's going to love it. We appreciate you watching Colored Valley Cooks, where we cook homemade, old-fashioned food just like Mama did. Bye, y'all. Love ya.